Hola, buenos días, o buenas tardes. Estoy Mike Trammell, Abalt Custom Lures, El Tercer Video. Loosely translated, good morning or good afternoon. Mike Trammell, Abalt Custom Lures, the third video. I wanted to show you a little bit about my line to lure connector. Okay, the line to lure connector is, well, it's a work in progress. So I'm going to show it to you close up here. This is how it's configured to go through the water and the weeds and the moss, hopefully being less likely to hang up. Okay, so there's not a bunch of arms and appendages sticking off of there, I think is how you would say it. It makes a hole in the water, very coefficient. Okay, this of course is a bobber stopper, line stopper, whatever. And it goes on your line first, and then of course this barrel or sleeve, this is clear in this case, it could be anything, it could be a color, it could be plastic, it could be polycarbonate, indestructible, whatever. It's just a barrel, and it's designed this way so it will slip stream, okay? But it's also designed this way because it plays an important role in keeping all this together, okay? It's kind of like we're fooling Mother Nature. Something that's probably not the norm, right? You're used to seeing something locked, like a lock itself. You open it up, you lock it, and you close it, and it's locked. Kind of like a chain with links. That's what this is. It's a linked, another, the whole deal is linked fishing lure system and methods. Well, this is no different. It's very, very similar to the way this is linked together. Okay, so I'll hold this up close. I hate doing this. Another thing about YouTube is we're documenting this and we're archiving it, basically, so we can go back, check dates and all that stuff. I'm just wondering, as I do little things like this, how long that it will take before we start seeing adaptations of this. So I think for that reason, I know the piracy's coming. I hate to say that, but boy, our industry is full of it, isn't it? But yeah, here's what I did. Here's my contribution to a line to lure connector, and this was to allow my lure to be configured quickly. Okay, I mentioned Palomar knot. That's the only Palomar knot that I tied in the first video. Well, I showed you the bobber stopper goes on your line first, just as though you was rigging it, maybe, a bullet weight Texas rig. Okay, and then the difference being is you slide this collar up first, and it has a bevel on it. That's why I showed you in the very beginning. I'd like to put it in tweezers, but you can see that it has a bevel. I'm hoping that is not blurred being that close. It's got a bevel. Okay, that goes on first, up towards your bobber stopper. And then here is where you tie your Palomar knot. Okay. This area, and on a lot of these, this is a torsion arm, and it actually moves out of the way to the side, and then it moves back to cover this opening right here after you put your hook on or your lure or whatever, and then you slide this down your line. Remember, there's a Palomar knot right here. Slide that over your line, kind of give that a little push together, and see how that one closes up that hole or that opening, and you slide it over. Isn't that cool? And now your knot is inside there, and then you slide down your bobber stopper to complete the weedlessness. Whoops, I bumped the phone, please don't. I'm sure that'll show up, blooper. Now look at that. Pretty easy to see how that would go through the weeds with less restriction than anything else. Certainly less restriction than these. It doesn't take I mean, that's sharp. And this is a bigger version, and of course there's these guys, and they all have these things that stick off of them. Well, when I was designing mine, I'm like, there's the old barrel swivel, there's Granddad's, you know, answer to a quick connection. But watch this. I did that with my fingernail. It's not supposed to happen like that. I mean, that's why I don't use those. That's happened time and time again when I was testing this, because this was quick and this would allow me to change and go through the motions, but it just, when we discover things like that, I shoot for something different. So, yeah, I don't want to lose my stuff to the public. At that time, I couldn't, so I started using these big monsters with 65 pound braid on everything that I threw, just so I could get it back, at least have a chance of getting it back, because you're going to get them hung up. This thing's weedless, but man, some of the places you can throw it, it's just inevitable that a fish is going to get on it, miss it, expose the hook, and you still got to get your lure in. So yeah, that's what led me to my line connector, and that's it. The good news, it'll get better. I foresee this being smaller, and I don't want to give the recipe away, but yeah, it'll be better. It'll absolutely be better, and there's nothing wrong with this. All the fish that I've caught have been on a version of this. So, I just wanted to show you that, and let's make a lure. Let's make a lure. So another thing that you can do is go ahead and you can go ahead and make you up a swim bait. Now you chose a curly tail because of this body, and of course this is a different head. These are two different heads. This guy's kind of keel weighted and keel design. This is kind of like a radome or the nose of a submarine. It's pretty neutral, you know. There's nothing there to direct it or give it influence one way or the other, like canards or ailerons or things like that that are meant to give direction. They're directional controls. So there's nothing like that. So it comes through the water like that. The only thing that it does do is, since I put the weight below this center line, imagine that connecting link being the center line, it's off center, slightly above his eyes. Well, the weight's below that, so it's always going to seek that, you know. It's going to pivot on this connecting link, and it's always going to seek to right itself. That's why this thing does this right here. It's very cool in the water, very cool. And with a paddle tail, it's a little bit different. With this, it's a little bit different action. No two actions are the same. And then, of course, that head being loose, nothing's going to perform like that unless they create a loose fitting head. Remember the dates. Remember what you're seeing here. Okay. Now, the reason I say you can go ahead and rig that up is you could, because it's designed to go with this connector. Everything is kind of like a chain link. It's linked together. So you can put whatever connector you feel comfortable with, but don't tie a knot on here. Don't tie a knot, because this will slide up over it and it'll expose that opening where you put your hook on. It has to have something to stop it here. It has something to stop it in the back, so you have to have something to stop it in the front. And that's why I designed this line to lure connector. You'll be tempted to tie it on there and tie a big old fat Palomar knot on your 65-pound braid weed eater line, but don't do it. It'll slide over it. So you could either do this, which is meant to do this, but you're probably saying they'll never hit it with this on there. Well, that's wrong. What I found, that's wrong. But if you're that type, then put a split ring on it. And now instead of having to fumble around and you know, grab a head or something like that, which is the whole point, these are made to be that way, you could slide this on to keep it in your tackle box until it came time to use it. And then you open that up, pop this off, pop that on, and assemble it, slide that down, and you're good to go. You get a lot of rattles from it being a loose connection like this. That was my whole deal. All right, so moving along. So you can pre-rig, and if you want to make a permanent pre-rig, put a split ring through there. Okay. Now let's make a lure. These are. I selected this hook because I went through a lot of baits, man. A lot of paddle tails, a lot of boot tails, a lot of fork tails. It's hard to find a hook because all swim baits are not created equal. They don't all have slots in them. Now this one here is kind of like a hybrid, you know. I made it out of stiffer. It's got a stiffer durometer, so that tail's going to kick a little differently. It's there because it always needs to be there. Some kind of trailer has to be on my design to give it that horizontal through the water column look, realistic look. The difference with this one is I put a hook slot in it. I took and I heated the wire up and I burned a slot in it so that hook would fit with no resistance on it to influence this thing not to hang straight, anything other than hanging straight, right? I don't want it influenced by a skin hook in it, you know what I'm saying? I don't want it, I don't want this wire to come in contact with it and put a hump in it. So that's why hook slots are very important to me. That's what I found out in doing this. So, but there's something different about it. I made this one, then I gave it this. I gave it realistic eyes that move, but they also rattle. I don't know if you heard that or not. So that coupled with the loose fit, I don't know, maybe twice the rattle, I don't know. All right, let's go. So there's your hook. All of mine come with a screw lock. It is so much better than the offset hook shank. That's the way we're going to do it, Texas rig, I know that. But man, I'm telling you, this and this design, and I'll explain that. I'll just rig it and explain it as I go. So there goes the connecting link. Do we want a skirt? Select any style of skirt you want, okay? Slide it on there. And I could use any color, you know, like I said, I can use any color swim bait that I want. I can use this black one that I made. That would give it a black body, right? Kind of like a lateral line or something hidden underneath that skirt. Here I've just chosen a boot tail, so, but it could be anything. Okay, so now the head I've chosen, it's got some neutral colors in it. It's clear and it's got red eye, you know, red eye shad. Gotta have them big old red eyes. Well, these don't move, okay? They're just big old red eyes. And inside of it is a black tungsten weight. You can see it. And it's got black and white. Black and white, okay? Color coordinated. Slide that on. Let's do this. Let's make a spinnerbait. Because you can always go to a swim bait from a spinnerbait, just lickety split. Look at that. Is that not scrumptious? So cool. Got kind of a scale pattern. This time of year, man, when they're supposed to be up in the banks, in the shallows, backs of creeks and coves and all that stuff. man, can you go wrong with a shad pattern? Something scaly, something low vis, high vis, maybe a little flash. You know, doesn't always have to be this. You know, this right here is a minnow, a shad. It's got that rattle. That's something you don't have, right? In your spinnerbait, unless you add it to it. This is built in. So we're gonna take this right here, this one right here, since we just made this on film, on camera, in the here and now, and we're gonna go fish this. I don't know if it'll be today or not. It's getting late, but or later. We may go hit the bank, put my money where my mouth is. So anyway, that's if we do go, this is what we'll be using. And if they're not hitting this, we'll take that off, just like I've been preaching. We will put on the line to lure connector, because it'll already be on the line, I hope, right? That's the whole point. Slide that bad boy on, and that's going to be our rig, man. Are you kidding me? So, bam, 2 lures, 2 different situations, 2 scenarios, 2 courses of action. So we'll start off, I always start off with a spinnerbait, because it's just so fast to go from, you've already got this on, it's just so fast to go from your line to this lure. But man, don't you want to catch them on that spinnerbait? I mean, that blade kind of controls the depth, right? You change the speed, you control the depth. Yeah. So anyway, we just made a lure out of parts and pieces out of your tackle box. One other thing, real quick. I've got to do this. Chris Jones. I know this is just right out of there, right? Chris Jones, world's worst fishing. That's just so funny to me because he is such a talent. I watched one of his videos. I don't remember if it was a worm mold, a huge curly tail, but he ended up making, it was an open pour, and he ended up making a copperhead snake worm. Awesome. I'm like, wow, man, I remember back in the day, the Snatrix, and then Doug Hanna, the bass professor, he had snake head lures that you could add your plastic to. It's just crazy stuff back in the day, just crazy. And of course, Chris Jones making that crazy snake made me think, and I'm like, man, what? And then, well, okay, yeah, the Snatrix. It actually had like a snake head on it. And he takes it out, and of course he fishes his stuff the next day or the same day with Plastisol. You can. You don't have to let it cure 3 or 4 days. I don't want to sound like I'm crossing the line, but you could take it. I take it right up to the pool and test it. But you do need to let it cure. So post cure. So anyway, he takes us out there and he puts on he puts on this. I'm sorry, Chris. He puts on this offset hook shank, right? So, and then he adds a lead head to it. And I harken back to some of the heads that I make, and I'm like, no. And this is what it looked like. Now, minus the skirt, his looked like this. He had this beautiful snake pattern with this huge curly tail. I don't know if it was 10 or 12 inches, but it looked like a snake. And then he's got this lead head on there, and I'm like, no, I can help. I can finish this. Well, look at this thing. This is basically the same thing. This is my head in, I believe they're going to call this June bud. You know, he would know. I mean, he's a master at that stuff. Blue and purple and green, I guess. You know, the common in any brand, I guess, would be either plum or June bug. So anyway, I've got a head that matches pretty good. So I color matched the head, and inside of there is the tungsten weight. But now that looks more like a natural, or something you would see with head and eyes, right? I don't know if a worm has head and eyes, but we know that shad and bait fish and their prey. So, but I just do that to complete my lure. Is that not cool? I told you in the first video that you could add a long thing. I think I called it a thing. I meant a worm, to make that 10-inch worm. And you will have, and I guarantee you, you will have something that nobody else does. Now take this away, because you don't have to have a skirt on there, but what happens there is you have to change the connecting link. Watch this right here. This connecting link is made for this particular head, and it is super small because the head is small. It's 1/8 ounce tungsten inside there. But that's so you get right up to that nose, and your hook and your offering, your trailer, whatever it may be, is right up to the back of it to complete that. So there's his head cut off, and then you complete it with your lure, right? Whatever it may be. I don't know if you can hear the rattle. And then fast forward to this is my point. Chris, check out that head, man. Can you imagine? I think that would look so cool. I'm going to try to get this to you. I don't know your address or anything like that. You probably don't dig people sending stuff to you, thinking it might be a, well, whatever. But anyway, imagine screwing your snake, your copperhead snake pattern on there, hooking it weedless, and then holding it up and taking a peek at it. I can see it right now. And you can take the skirt off and, like I said, change that wire, that connecting link, to a shorter version, and just have head to offering instead of a head skirt offering. So you'd have to shorten that, right? You know, I make them, so that's kind of what I do. But imagine that being, it's got the weight in it. You don't have to paint it. It's got, you put reptilian eyes on it. You're the master of eyes, man. You've got, but man, just if you had that right there, don't you know that that would complete that lure? Not that it's not awesome already, but would this not make it more awesome? Yeah. Anyway, just spitballing. But yeah, it could look like that. So anywho, I'm going to finish it with that. I'm going to come up with a color of the month. It's going to be a simple one. It's one that you can accessorize. And yeah, stay tuned. There's more to come. See you on the next cast.